And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about another trade rumor around Lonzo Ball that suggests that he might be a potential good fit for the Los Angeles Lakers. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Mazelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. We're talking about, could Lonzo Ball really head back to the Lakers? And so if you have not got a chance to see this, this is on sportsillustrated.com. And within this article, it's going to take you to a tweet. And so within this tweet, they're talking about something that Jovan Buha had to say on his YouTube show. And so Jovan Buha is a Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and so he's very connected with the team. He does these Q&As, and so I definitely think that you should for sure check it out because it gives a lot of good information here. But within this tweet, they're talking about his clip where he's talking about the potential of Lonzo Ball having a reunion with the Los Angeles Lakers. And so once again, go over to this article and you'll be able to see this tweet that we are getting ready to bring up. And so within this tweet, you see at the top, it starts talking about the Lakers would be interested in a potential Lonzo Ball reunion. And he says, I think they would be. It's just a matter of what his price is. And you have to factor in his health and the history there. You can't even pencil him in for 60 games. So whatever you're giving up for him, there has to be some level of a discount, or you're factoring in this dude might just play 40 or 50 games. He's a guy you have to load manage. How can we load manage him to get to April in one piece? And you also see the link to his YouTube channel as well. And so let's go ahead and let's start with what he's suggesting and saying that he does think that a potential Lonzo Ball reunion could happen. And so I'm right there with him. I do think that the Lakers would have some interest in Lonzo Ball. I think that with what Lonzo Ball does on the floor, he can help any team, especially the Los Angeles Lakers. Don't cover them on a night-to-night basis, but I have saw some of those games. Obviously, they played the Chicago Bulls. And so I think that Lonzo Ball would certainly take care of the ball handling responsibilities, being a true point guard, and just really being that coach on the floor like we saw for the Chicago Bulls. Because when he was on the floor for the Bulls, he was certainly an impact on the offensive end and the defensive end. I've said this numerous times that, look, when he was on the offensive end, if the offense got stagnant, you could trust that Lonzo Ball was going to get players into the right spots. He will find you if you're cutting. And if you have a mismatch on the post, you can assure yourself that the ball is coming to you. And so Vooch definitely found that out, that if he had a mismatch and Lonzo was in the game, he was going to find him. And also, with the offense, Lonzo was terrific at starting the fast break. And so he will help your team as far as pace and play, which is why he fit in with the Chicago Bulls and their new style of wanting to get up and down the court, because he's a guy that can get your fast break started, and he doesn't have to put the ball on the floor. And the passes are money because he's going to put you in a situation where you're either going to turn and be able to go up for the layup or the dunk or whatever, or he can put you in position to where you can get to a spot up jump shot or whatnot. And so you don't have to necessarily worry about doing too much once you get the ball in your hands, because he's that good as far as seeing where the defense is and where you should be. And so as long as you're there, you are going to get an easy basket opportunity with Lonzo on the floor. And defensively, he would absolutely help the Lakers. And that was where I was very impressed with what Lonzo did last season, because after sitting out as much time as he did, I thought his defense was really more impressive than what he did on the offensive end, because there were times where he's in front of the rotations, knowing exactly where to go. It seems like that he's coaching everybody else to get to their spots. he cleaned up a lot of stuff that the Chicago Bulls did poorly. I think he was definitely one of the better perimeter players on the defensive end for the Chicago Bulls out there. And I loved his activity, his hands getting steals. He would get blocked shots and things like that. The efforts were there, like multiple efforts for Lonzo Ball. And so I loved seeing that. And I think that if you are trading for him, you're encouraged with what you saw in year one coming back from his knee injury, because now you're thinking with a full training camp and then also too with a full offseason to really ramp up the way that he wants to, how much better would he get in season two after coming back from this knee injury that nobody has come back from in the NBA? And so you got to give Lonzo a ton of credit there. And so to Buhas's point, one of the things that he talks about is that you'd have to wonder about how many games you're going to get from Lonzo Ball. And so I think that is something that I'm right there with him there, because in 4 seasons with the Bulls, only 70 games. Last season, he played in 35 games. He started 14 of those. When he signed his new deal with the Chicago Bulls, which was a bit of a surprise, especially when the rumors were out there that perhaps a team was interested in giving up some draft picks for him, but the Bulls elected to re-sign him. He only played in 5 more games after signing his deal. And so you wonder what you're getting with Lonzo, because keep in mind, the Bulls did not play him in back-to-back situations. They had him on a minutes restriction, and he still didn't get a chance to finish out the season on a healthy note. And so that is something that you would have to worry about, and you do have to think about that. But make no mistake about it, when Lonzo's on the court, one of the things that I said is that the Bulls were better by 9.3 points per 100 possessions. And so he was terrific when he was on the court. You throw out the numbers that he had. He only averaged 7.6 points, 3.3 assists, 3.4 rebounds, and he only shot 34.4% from the three-point line and 36.6 from the field, 81.5% from the free throw line. And so the percentages, the numbers not there, but what he will bring to your team, it's something that you definitely want. So with the Lakers, it all depends on this. Are they really trying to pivot for the right now? Because if so, I think that this is a deal that makes sense for the Lakers to do it. The question is, what would the Lakers be willing to part ways with, and what makes sense for the Bulls? And so do I think that this is going to be a 1-for-1 type of deal? Absolutely not. Do I think that this is going to be just a 2-team trade? I don't believe in that. And I think that it's probably going to involve another player that perhaps the Lakers would be interested in, a player that they've been rumored to get. And it's just a matter of how much they would be willing to give up. And so as we take a look here at the roster situation and just some of the possibilities here, because like I said, it's hard to speculate what a potential deal would look like, because it's going to depend if this were serious, what time these guys would want to execute this trade, because we're going to go into that in a moment. But first, let's take a look at just the players that could potentially be moved. And so I think that Nikola Vucevic would have to be a player that the Lakers would want to think about, because that would address the center position. But keep in mind, 34 years old, but he's going to be a guy that can stretch the floor. It's an expiring contract, and so maybe the Lakers would want to move or for him, get him. I think that Zach Collins could be on the table. I think also too, Jalen Smith could be on the table. And the reason I say that any of the centers could be on the table is because I think that the timing of the deal would have to be something that would be after the draft. And so just throwing out a hypothetical, if the Bulls were to go out and draft Asa Newell, if they go out and get Thomas Sorber, if they go out and get Derek Queen, if they go out and get a center, then I think that is going to mean that the Bulls would certainly be interested in moving any of their centers. And so it doesn't matter if it's Vooch. It wouldn't matter if it's Zach Collins. I don't think it would matter if it's Jalen Smith, as long as it's going to get them a player that fits their timeline, which is something that AK has talked about. Because remember, he's said that he wants to get players that have some experience in this league and that could come over and help this team as far as not going into a full rebuild. And so there are some players that I think the Chicago Bulls would be interested in on the Lakers. But just keeping that in mind, these are some players that maybe could be moved. I could see Coby White Perhaps with his contract situation in the 1 year, he's in a ton of trade rumors. I'm not in that camp of moving him. I think that Ayo could be a player as well. I'm not in that camp of moving him either. But depending on what a team is willing to bring back to the Chicago Bulls, perhaps that's on the table. And then Kevin Huerter, I could see him being on the table too as well with that 1 year deal. And so I could not see Modest Buzelis being included in the deal. I don't think that the Bulls would want to trade him off. And also too, I don't think that Josh Giddey would be on the table. And again, I'm hesitant to say that Coby White would be, but it is a possibility based off the rumors. And so with the Lakers, I think for the Bulls, if they're interested in some players, it would start with Hachimura, 27 years old, 6'8". He would definitely provide some wing play for the Chicago Bulls. I think that he could fit the play style that they want to get up and down the court. And I think he would bring some toughness as well. And so for a 1 year deal at $18.2 million, I could see that. Another player that I think that the Bulls would certainly be interested in would be an Austin Reaves. And so with Austin Reaves, 13.9 million, 2 years. And here's what I will say about this with Austin Reaves. I don't think that the Lakers would be willing to necessarily move him, or they're hesitant to move him because of this. And so this is something that, again, Jovan Buha said in his same YouTube Q&A that he was doing when he was asked about a potential Houston Rockets deal. And he was saying that he didn't think that it could happen. And he goes into focusing really on Austin Reaves. And he says the one thing that I tried to remind people of when they want to trade Austin is the Lakers offense already was not good enough with Luka and LeBron. Austin, and for all of Austin's faults, he does give you a certain level of ball handling and playmaking and shot creation. That gap between Austin and whoever the next guy, which I think would technically be Gabe. And so he's talking about Gabe Vincent, maybe Dalton. So he's talking about Dalton Kencht for shot creation, but Dalton is nowhere near the ball handler or passer or playmaker that Austin is. And so if that's the thinking of the Los Angeles Lakers, I think it's going to be tough to get Austin Reaves, but I do think it's something that the Bulls would be interested in. Jared Vanderbilt, he's been mentioned in a ton of rumors with the Chicago Bulls and a possible deal. And so, look, I think if the Bulls were taking him on, they would have to get some picks back. And so remember, going back to what Buha just said, if they're trading for Lonzo, they most certainly want to get some insurance back, just in case that doesn't work out. And so if we would be taking on a bad contract, then where would the picks be coming from? Because that is something that you would have to think about in throwing Jared Vanderbilt in there. And the same with Gabe Vincent, even though he's on a 1 year contract, I don't think that that's necessarily a great contract. He hasn't played up to the level that he was at when he was with the Miami Heat. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And so for the Bulls to take him on for a year, they're not going to be able to flip him. I don't think that they would necessarily be able to rehab his trade value. And so that would be interesting. With Kleber, I couldn't see the Bulls wanting him. With Dalton Kencht, I could see it being a player that he could be on the table. The reason I say that is because they've already put him out there to, technically he was traded to the Charlotte Hornets, but the trade got rescinded for Mark Williams. And so, look, they've already traded him out for a player that had some injury history. And so Lonzo Ball had some injury history, and they've already shown that they would part ways with Dalton Kencht if it means that it's something for a win now type of situation, which is why the Lakers are very confusing to me as a potential fit for Lonzo Ball, because if you're going with Lonzo, you're getting a little bit older, and you're most certainly, I think, pushing the chips in a bit because you're managing him enough to get to the playoffs, and you're hoping that you're going to make a deep run. I'm not sure that the Lakers would want to do that, especially with Luka. You have Austin Reaves. You do have a Dalton Kencht. At some point, you have to pick a direction. Are you pivoting towards the youth, or are you still trying to go all in here to help LeBron James win a title? And so this is where this would be tricky as a rumor. And then Shake Milton, I guess he could be a player that could be thrown out there as well. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like that a deal could possibly happen with the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Lakers? Because I think that this would be something that, again, this is just a rumor, but I think it's really a 50-50. And there's some things that would need to happen. I think for the Bulls, they would need to get a center in the draft. And I think that would maybe shore up with some of the things that they could put on the table that would make the Lakers interested in a possible deal. And then I think for the Lakers, you'd have to ask yourself, would it be worth it? And then also too, who else would get involved? But how that exactly works and then what the picks would look like, unsure here. But this is just one of these things where, you see it. It's a potential trade rumor. It's not like Lonzo hasn't been floated out there before with the Los Angeles Lakers. Obviously, he's from, the LA area. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like any of these players that we mentioned could be on the move to the Chicago Bulls? Do you feel like it could be a 3-team trade? Do you feel like that maybe it's something that the Bulls and Lakers visit after the NBA draft? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And so as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.